ወዳንተ መቅረብ ሙሉ ደስታዬ ነው ካንተ ጋር መነጋገር የመንገድ ደስታዬ ህልውና እፎይታዬ ፍቅር ባልንጀራዬ ህልውና እፎይታዬ ፍቅር ባልንጀራዬ እኔን ካፈቀርከኝ ከራስህ ፊትህን አዙር የኔንም ፍላጎት ከፈለግ የራስህን አትሻ አንተ በኔ ውስጥ እንድትሞትና እኔ ባንተ ውስጥ ለዘላለም እኖር ዘንድ አንተ በኔ ውስጥ እንድትሞትና እኔ ባንተ ውስጥ ለዘላለም እኖር ዘንድ በሐውላ 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 የሰው ልጅ ሆይ 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 እኔን ካፈቀርከኝ ከራስህ ፊትህን አዙር የኔንም ፍላጎት ከፈለግ የራስህን አትሻ አንተ በኔ ውስጥ እንድትሞትና እኔ ባንተ ውስጥ ለዘላለም እኖር ዘንድ አንተ በኔ ውስጥ እንድትሞትና እኔ ባንተ ውስጥ ለዘላለም እኖር ዘንድ በሐውላ 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 በሐውላ
You have to clap for this part.
ሰብ 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 እኔማ ምን አለኝ ፍቅር ነው ቤቴ
ማስተማር ብችል ለጎረቤቴ እኔማ ምን አለኝ ፍቅር ነው ቤቴ ማስተማር ብችል ለጎረቤቴ እኔማ ምን አለኝ ፍቅር ነው ቤቴ ማስተማር ብችል ለጎረቤቴ እኔማ ምን አለኝ ፍቅር ነው ቤቴ ማስተማር ብችል ለጎረቤቴ ማስተማር ብችል
ደስ ይለዋል ልቤ የሕያው ልጁ ነኝ ለሰማይ አባቴ ለሰማይ አባቴ ሰማይ ዙፋኑ ነው ምድር መረገጫ ለሰማይ አባቴ ልቤ ነው ማረፊያው ልቤ ነው ማረፊያው ልቤን ሰጠዋለሁ ክቡር ነው ቤቴ ለሱ መኖሪያ ለሰጠኝ ሕይወቴ
ልቤን ሰጠዋለሁ ክቡር ነው ቤቴ ለሱ መኖሪያ ለሰጠኝ ሕይወቴ
እኔማ ምን አለኝ ፍቅር ነው ቤቴ ማስተማር ብችል ለጎረቤቴ
እኔማ ምን አለኝ ፍቅር ነው ቤቴ ማስተማር ብችል ለጎረቤቴ
እንዴት ደስ ይላል የአምላክ ቃሉ ሰብ ማስተማር ብችል ማርካል ኃይሉ የገነት ፍሬው
መስጠት በቃሉ
ማስተማሩ የልብ ማግኘት ነው መልካም አንደበት እናንጻ ሁሌ ከሐሜት እኔማ ምን አለኝ ፍቅር ነው ቤቴ ማስተማር ብችል ለጎረቤቴ እኔማ ምን አለኝ ፍቅር ነው ቤቴ
Adumbaate garu bahula lafti barite amabe kamaru aha Adumbaate garu bahula lafti barite amabe kamaru Adumbaate garu bahula lafti barite amabe bahula lafti barite amabe bahula lafti barite amabe bahula lafti barite amabe lafti barite amabe bahula lafti barite amabe kama amabe amabe Barite sirritti bahula la babafnan walqixxoofte bitti Barite sirritti bahula la babafnan walqixxoofte bitti sirritti bahula la babafnan walqixxoofte bahula la babafnan bahula la babafnan walqixxoofte yo la babafnan bahula la babafnan yo la babafnan walqixxoofte walqixxoofte Ifamal fidani babin balbala karati isama didani Ifamal fidani babin balbala karati isama didani Ifamal fidani babin balbala karati isama didani Ifamal fidani babin balbala sensati isama didani balbala karati isama didani balbala karati babin balbala karati babin balbala karati Isamadita, Isamadita, Isamadita. Thank you. Kotu wolarini siti manarini nama meka kara dachazu rufe bahaulani Kotu wolarini siti manarini nama hunda kara dachazu rufe bahaulani nama meka kara dachazu we all jump together kara dachazu we all jump together kara dachazu rufe bahula kara dachazu rufe bahula rufe bahula rufe bahula rufe bahula
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Hello, dear friends. Thank you, friends from Ethiopia and Eritrea, for giving us that spiritual energy. So for the past 2.5 days, considering the morning session, we've been involved in the deep process of reflection and consultation through the lens of the 31st December message, 2025. And we have seen from your reflections and experiences how we have been able to advance. And of course, we were focusing on the efforts of the community to become a protagonist of the plan. But we wanted maybe just to pause at this time before we transition to the insights from institutions to reflect deeply on what has been the outcome of this long process of learning. Before we turn to the insights emerging from the efforts of the institutions, let's examine a reality of profound significance in the most advanced clusters, particularly in villages and neighborhoods, where the engagement with society reflects advances never experienced before. Paragraph 8 of the 31st December message draws our attention to neighborhoods and villages where the activities of the plan have reached a level of prevalence that is beginning to shape the life of entire populations at a level of culture. In these places, we are witnessing more than just the flourishing of activities. We are observing the emergence of communities where the processes of the faith are fully alive and integrated in daily life. These neighborhoods and villages are living laboratories of the community building process, and the experiences generated there are now showing us how the Baha'i community can function when participation reaches a critical mass. In practical terms, we might see an entire village of children engaged in children's classes, junior youth and junior youth groups, or a growing number of youth and parents and elders all integrated in the process of the faith. The rhythm of cycles of action, reflection, and learning becomes part of the shared life of the community. Here, the community itself begins to learn as a whole, generating insights that we need to pay keen attention to in this second phase of the plan. Dear friends, the advances in these settings is very profound. The House of Justice, in paragraph 13 of the 30th December message 2021, notes that the focus of the friends in such villages and neighborhoods begins to broaden beyond sustaining activities to being concerned with the spiritual and material well-being of everyone. Institutions experience a corresponding shift. In such locations, local spiritual assembly, for example, feels the responsibility for the spiritual education of an entire generation, most of whom are now participating actively in the life of the community. Multiple lines of action unfold simultaneously, requiring coordinated accompaniment from auxiliary body members and their increasing number of assistants, creating a network of relationships that are imbued with impact due to the application of the Word of God in the individual and the collective lives of the people. Why does this matter at this point for us? The House of Justice makes this connection very explicit in the 30th December message, where it says the emergence of such neighborhoods and villages is strategically central to the aim of the global plans. These are places where the society building power of the faith is being released in greater measure. And these communities are reaching a tipping point, a turning point, where we see the transformative effect radiating outwards. Conversations inspired by Baha'i teachings begin to influence the wider society. The local spiritual assemblies is increasingly seen as a source of guidance and moral insight. And the faith takes a visible role in shaping the discourse around education and the younger generations and the common good of the people. Paragraph 14 of the 30th December message emphasizes that the inhabitants in these communities acquire a substantial increased capacity to steer their own development, while the institutions of the faith gain an expanded vision of their responsibilities, not only to support activities, but to remain attentive to social forces and safeguard the integrity of the community's main endeavors. These combinations, empowerment of the population and the learning posture of the institution, creates a dynamic where the transformative power of the faith is being released in tangible ways. Dear friends, these advances present both opportunity and a responsibility as we move forward in the propagation of the 9-year plan in the second phase. How do we learn to raise more and more of such neighborhoods and villages? How do we ensure that these experiences are captured, shared, and applied so that the neighborhoods and villages can increasingly advance toward this level of prevalence? Friends, as I mentioned earlier on, we may need to pause at this moment and perhaps give some of the friends what I would call a panel to share advances that are being observed in such locations. We'll hear, maybe if you can have them move forward, we have Victor from Givogi, and then we also have Sama. He'll share experiences from Sasa, and Kemba from Kalengo. If you can please maybe step forward. There's a special arrangement of seating for you. So these friends will attempt to take us to these villages through the comments and descriptions that they are going to share regarding the advances that are being experienced in these villages. As they share, let us pay attention to the frontiers that are being experienced, that are being explored in these places. How accompaniment is evolving, how coordination is exercised, how relationships with the wider society are changing, and how capacity is being built across the entire populations. So also maybe at the end, we will open it up for us to ask questions, maybe for them to maybe see a little bit on certain areas or clarify certain elements that they are going to describe. So thank you. We now turn to the panel.
Hello, our friends. Okay. So the following is an attempt to describe the transformation unfolding within Zasabi neighborhood, with a particular focus on the Kamaria pocket.
Dear Sama, if you could project your voice.
So with a particular focus on Kamaria pocket. In this neighborhood, we can see some tiny glimpses of degree of prevalence that has been achieved. Despite the complex dynamics of an urban setting, we are seeing glimmerings of a community learning to release the society-building powers of the faith. However modest the level of transformation is in Zasa, it is inspiring to see a population that is 80% Muslim embracing harmony between the regions. About 900 friends are coming together to say prayers in devotional meetings, and over 80 adults are studying together, drawing from the Word of God with the hope of walking the path of service. Meanwhile, we have about 860 junior youth and children who are planting the love of God in their hearts, building spiritual qualities, and going through programs of spiritual empowerment. This is a community where, a few years ago, madrasa teachers viewed children classes as a threat and would reschedule their madrasa timetables to stop them from going. It is heartening to see more and more mothers, including young mothers, arising to serve, spearheading community activities, and getting the support of the community. This is quite a transformation in a culture where women usually take a back seat. They are now emerging as strong protagonists. When the process started in Zasa, youth were at the forefront, and women only participated in devotional meetings. Then they embraced groups of families, forming a major part of the 280 participants. There about 95% is women. Building the courage to do more as they went through the institute process. They moved from just inviting children and supporting classes to becoming teachers and animators. Recently, we have a group of young mothers who are now tutors. You can also see them driving the neighborhood and pocket nucleus and serving in many other capacities. Youth, of course, are important champions of the process, and we have seen a lot of transformation over the past years. This is the community where most youth don't go past primary education. If they do, most either drop out in the middle of their secondary education or rarely go to high school. Despite the busy dynamics of city life and the demands on their time, we are seeing more and more youth dedicating time for service. They are reshaping their aspirations to no longer focus just on their own advancement, but are dedicating time to the advancement of their younger brothers and sisters and their community. Some of the youth at the forefront of activities who had dropped out of school are considering their education. A number have gone back to school while still serving, embracing a coherent life. You can also see the transformation in their language and the career choices they make. At a level of culture, we are seeing some more and more friends embracing a culture of consultation, with more women being part of these consultations. This is a result of participation in institute causes and groups of families. The appreciation of both spiritual and material education has also increased. Through home visits and parents' meetings, parents are consulting with friends on how to support the advancement of their children's education. We are seeing more and more parents supporting activities. As a result of these consultations, they supported the tutorial programs aimed at assisting junior youth in grade 5 to 7 to address some of the challenges in their education, including the establishment of a pre-Form 1 class and an English program for youth that is being held twice a week. We also see an appreciation for advancing in spiritual education. This January, there was a graduation ceremony for 4 children classes, moving from grade 1 to grade 2, attended by parents and local leaders, where the children gave presentations and certificates were awarded. More and more groups of families are slowly starting simple acts of social action meant to address their challenges and those of their communities. The path here, up to here has been one of learning through action and reflection. At first, the focus was mainly on establishing activities, and we focused on numbers, increasing numbers. Through these efforts, the program has been able to reach 63% of junior youth and 27% of the children in the Kamaria pocket. But then the focus moved to also improve the quality of these activities. Through efforts to formalize children classes, the friends are learning to move from grade to grade. Now we have classes up to grade 3 offered in the pocket, with teachers who have been trained up to grade 5. In junior youth programs, we have groups that have studied up to 14 texts, and a number of animators who have gone through all 15 texts, with over 71 graduates of the junior youth program, and about 65 of them who have been assisted to advance to the main sequence. Focus is also shifted towards improving the quality of devotional meetings. Devotionals are viewed on a continuum, ranging from those that only happen when friends visit or when accompanied, to those that are well structured and function without accompaniment, where the capacity of hosts have been built. Similar efforts have been applied to the groups of families, enabling them to advance along a continuum. An increasing number of groups of families are building the capacity to offer institute courses and in their groups and sustain a number of core activities. This has contributed to this transformation that we are seeing. So recently, during a visit by a friend from Madagascar, as they were moving down the street, a local leader sitting with a colleague called to them and said, he asked them, "Why are you not visiting me for a long time?" Then he went to describe to his colleague the program that is being championed by the Baha'is in the community. And he said, the Baha'is have a very good vision for our community. This is just an example of many ways the community is embracing the vision of Baha'u'llah. There are a number of collaborative arrangements in the community, including the neighborhood nucleus, the 37 groups of families, the 19 groups of tutors, teachers, and animators, and arts group. These groups of friends, these are groups of friends who share with a shared vision, shaped by the vision of Baha'u'llah, are working together to sharpen their understanding of that vision and learning to implement it to improve their lives and that of their community, slowly shaping a path towards civilization. Through the arts group, we see a cohort of more than 30 youth coming together with some adults and junior youth, drawing from the writings and experiences of community building activities to inspire their art and to respond to the community's challenges and aspirations. We saw a transformation in the content of their dramas, and as they come together, they've started giving time to learning, and some of them have enrolled. The local spiritual assembly provides support to this process through guidance and provision of resources. Due to the nature of the cluster, the local spiritual assembly is being connected to the local leaders in the neighborhood and the pocket through a sector administrative committee, which has had a number of spaces with the local leaders. There has been growing collaboration with the school and teachers, local police, local government, and other social actors. We had a meeting with the community to reflect on the history of the neighborhood and the aspirations of the community. Plans are underway to systematize this process with the aim of formulating a community vision of growth. Though we are only seeing glimpses, there's a great hope as we see that the community building process is in the hands of the community. The neighborhood strategic nucleus that started with 3, expanded to 8, now it's about 21, has evolved to become a neighborhood collaborative group. This group, consisting of about 21 friends, meets every Sunday to reflect, plan, and follow the unfoldment of the various community building elements. This group consists of cluster coordinators focusing on that particular neighborhood, growth facilitators, assistants to the auxiliary board member, some teachers from the local primary school, some experienced tutors, animators, children class teachers, and some key individuals. All of these members, they live within the neighborhood. This group functions without the need of an external push. They have developed a rhythm of planning, acting, and reflecting that oversees the process and the consistency, and they have achieved the consistency of their meetings. This is an element we are seeing of a self-perpetuating system. We hope in time it will continue to learn, to expand, and further strengthen the process. Thank you.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. My name is Kemba Rahman from Kalengo, which is found in Opoti locality, Ngora cluster, from the eastern side of Uganda. Kalengo is having a number of endeavors ranging, within the 3 lines of action. That is expansion and consolidation, source action, and then prevalent discourses within the community. And so, since the beginning of this space, we have been hearing about, even in terms of statistics, even in terms of activities and how they are arranged. Now, to the extent that we are seeing about 85% of the population within this village of Kalengo being connected to all the activities that are in line with the 3 areas of endeavors. And with this, then we are seeing, within the children, about 60% to 70% of the children are participating in either classes or nurturing young minds classes. And then the junior youth, about 70 also. And then we have youth that have come in as a result of the strengthening of these activities within this village. But I'm going to share about the level of transformation the Word of God is having on this population. We are seeing, because before we were struggling with opening up some homes within these villages. You find a home whereby someone says, I don't want to see any Baha'i here. Or when you go and you mention about anything about Baha'u'llah, they will say, you go away, they will just chase you. But then through the agriculture processes that was started way back in 2023 December, which involved a number of families, because we started with like around 33 families. But then as the process continued to be strong within this area of endeavor, many homes, started embracing this kind of a learning that had been set in motion. And so then we are seeing these very homes that were so hard to open, because when we went with the conversation about agriculture, because this was what they, looking at, they were aspiring, to know more and to learn about these new ways of participating in farming other than the traditional ways of farming. And so then they embraced it. And we started, working with them. And from that, then we saw that when we even started the conversation about education, for example, I can take one family of a man called Edeu. His wife, came and started nurturing young minds, and she went and started the class. But before starting the class, she was like, yes, I'm hearing you are going to teach the children, but I don't want to hear anything about Baha'u'llah here in this class. Then we are like, yeah, it's okay. This is a class that is going to involve children of 3 to 4 to reinforce their spiritual and intellectual growth, drawing from science, mathematics and language capabilities. Then he was like, yeah, it's okay. Then, because in his family, he had only one child that is eligible to attend in the class. So then, with the teacher or the wife, now we were like, can you also think of inviting the children for your neighbors? Then they invited these children, and then the class started. And currently, this man is co-teaching with this lady. When they reached the element of singing the song, "We Are Drops of One Ocean," he was the one actually at the forefront of learning this song. And when I left, he took over to start now helping the wife to sing this song in this class. So then that is kind of a transformation. I looked like, okay, so you mean when you approach, when you're approaching the community through the 3 areas of endeavors, you realize this kind of, but also they are also, because these elements, content is inspired by the word of God. So then indirectly you are seeing that the person is, benefiting from the word, but also the kind of influence is having to the neighbors within that village. Then the other one is the capacity, or the local leaders taking, the key actors taking the responsibility of the development of their village. This was started way back when we started the learning process about working with the local leaders, not only as inviting them, you come and say opening remarks, but then to the extent that, so if we want, what does it mean to collaborate with the local leaders? And so then we started, having conversations with them, and to the extent, because as we were having conversations with them to see that we come together and then start learning about how to raise certain capacities on how to steer the community in the role, in terms of their roles to develop the village. Certain things were evident already. One local leader, the political council, found one social action collaborator and said, why is it that you guys, you have good programs, but you bring them to only one clan? Because Kalengo is working with 5 groups of families, and the 2 groups of families are occupied with only one clan almost. So then it was like, everything that comes, what about the other side of the village. Don't you think we are also part of Kalengo? Then this collaborator was like, okay, you are one leader, can you share this to your fellow leaders, and then we have kind of a space that can bring this understanding. We have a common understanding. That is how we started having now the local leaders spaces. And then in this first space, they started now thinking, okay, so if you want to extend these activities to the other side of the village, what should we do? Like now, and then one leader, because he was also participating in the training institute, was like, can we start thinking about training more human resources that can extend? Because these friends are only 3. They cannot, have this conversation in the... So they started now mobilizing the community to have a community gathering. That's how we started now having. But all this was also by the assistance and organized by the local spiritual assembly of Opot Town Council. And so from this gathering, then we saw a number of families now getting connected. And then the other one, that made me to think like, okay, the processes are having, transformation and to these leaders when we had the recent key actors space. When they started, someone saying, the Baha'i community should help us to think about how we are going to attend to the youth that have dropped out of school and they are just there in the community. Because you guys, your programs are so systematic, the way you organize them, the education activities. So then what if also think about this kind of generation? And of course the story is long, but from there then we started now having action plans on how we are going to go about this. And then the other one was also like, then one leader was like, we have 7 classes. And our children are walking like 1.5 to 2 kilometers to go and access nursery educational level. What if we have our own, because in Kalengo we don't have any school. But then this is a concern that the leaders are also seeing that, okay, what if we have also this? And then I remember one leader making a joke to Auntie Nancy, you can actually be our director of this kindergarten. But for me, I didn't see only him saying, okay, you can be the leader, but his consciousness that this is my role. Oh, this is our role to see that we have this kind of kindergarten in the community. There's a lot, but I want to go to the next one. Of course, through the agricultural activities that we are having, we are seeing the community's consciousness of working together. To see that, okay, if we have this need, me alone, I cannot be able to contribute to the advancement or to realize the change in this need within the village. And so then this is a capacity that was learned when we are having the agriculture, when we have the farmers groups. Because the farmers groups, they come together in these groups, they consult about the nature of their gardens or their group garden, and then they come up with ways on how they are going to answer some of the questions. So the very capacity is now being transferred now to the needs of the community. Imagine, because the Guardian talks about consultation as a pivotal principle in steering the development of the community. So then these groups, for us, we are not seeing them as groups of farmers, but which capacity are they aiding these individuals in these groups to develop, to the extent that they can now see a bigger picture on how to come together in unity and consult about any need. And that's why it was even very easy in the key leader space for them to not think about, okay, so someone is going to come and do this for us. But it is them consulting together and coming up with action plans on how to do that. But also the most, just also connecting to how is this impacting the Training Institute now. At first, it was really very difficult to enroll the participants in the Training Institute. One, it was the attitude. People heard about, when you see book 1, the reflection on the life of spirit, and then the first unit is understanding Baha'i writings. Oh, these ones want to convert us. Baha'i, I will not. But through these social action endeavors, we realized that this attitude, there was a shift in mind, the way they view these materials. To the extent that, okay, they are seeing Nabil is a social action collaborator.
Dear Kemba, may consider now summarizing your contribution. Yeah.
Thank you. Maybe let me finish with this one. So then, when they see that Nabil is the one visiting their families to have conversations, to help them, learn about these elements in agriculture, someone is moved, is like, hey, what if it's my youth who is also coming to help me? And then we're like, yeah, we have a number of materials that can help your son or daughter to gain this knowledge and come back and share with you on your garden. And so then when we are talking about materials, not only PSA materials, we are talking about materials including the Training Institute. And so then they are seeing the Training Institute as an educational tool that is raising human resources for the development of their village. And so then when there is a training, we just say, okay, with the local spiritual assembly and the local leaders, we are going to have a training this day in this period. And so then it is the parents themselves say, okay, where are you going to put the training? Is here. And then they mobilize. Even when there is a training, when we were having because we have a training center, a learning center at the Catholic Church. And so this local leader was moving and he found only 12 participants. They're like, no, we expected 30. And then he jumped on his bicycle and started moving around this group of family to mobilize all the youth. And at the end, we had like 36 coming to participate in this. So then the way they are...
Maybe you can pause at more, but I think you're trying to help us understand how the consciousness about the significance of education in all its forms is now present in the village, and the community is beginning to own the institute. Yeah, thank you.
Alapa, dear friends, when we were reading the paragraph from 31st December, so we all appreciate that it's not possible to describe these villages. So maybe what I will do is just to attempt to kind of describe some elements or realities that are emerging in Givogi village. And I understand that most of us are familiar with some aspects of reality of Givogi, and also maybe some of us have visited, and maybe we can associate with maybe the description that I will just attempt to do. When you think about Givogi in Tiriki West cluster, I just wanted to kind of put it into the context that Tiriki West cluster is in a group of adjoining clusters with 7 other clusters, making them totally 8 clusters. And all the clusters in this group of adjoining, they're actually 3rd milestone clusters. And it's actually able and in the neighboring groups of adjoining, we see more, the clusters, continuing to advance along the continuum. Now, when you think about Tiriki West as a cluster, we see it organized now into 25 localities currently, and we have currently 18 local spiritual assemblies. And among the 18, we have 3 which are most advanced, or are local assemblies operating within the most advanced centers of intense activities. But we are also bountiful that 2 of these 18 local spiritual assemblies have been authorized for a 2-stage election, meaning that the Baha'i population has really expanded. Now, when you think about Givogi as a village, just to kind of remind you, for those of us who are also familiar, is that it is a group of 13 smaller villages with about 6,600 inhabitants. And this whole village has been organized into 7 pockets. And over time, this village, in this group of villages, there have emerged a group of 30 individuals who are at the heart of the growth process, connecting with about 300 and more, who are also at the, seeing themselves as part of the nucleus, and connecting with more than 3,000 who are connected to the community building processes. Now, when you see a village, we realize that it is even still complex to describe it. And as a village, we are beginning to see how we can zoom into a particular pocket. So one reality that is emerging in Givogi, we have got one pocket with about 737 inhabitants, and half of these inhabitants are Baha'is. And also, we see that in this pocket, the entire pocket is connected to the community building process. Every household, every individual is actually connected. And in another pocket, it's like about 70% really connected to the process, which is Givogi pocket. Now, what we are seeing is that as we are beginning to see that we are reaching to everyone and every household, there are particular observations that we are beginning to see that I'm just trying to attempt to describe. And one thing that I wanted to mention is that there has been capacity in this village to learn, to see how we can together see how the faith can contribute to reshaping the society in a way that we can see the whole population moving towards the vision of Baha'u'llah for humanity. And at the heart of it is the educational process. And particularly education plays a very significant role, and the Training Institute is very key. So towards the end of the last series of plans, and prominent at the beginning of the 9-year plan, was a paradigm shift in the manner in which the global plans are unfolding in Givogi. Rather than being seen as a plan that Baha'is are doing for the community, there was an emergence of community beyond the Baha'is seeing themselves as the protagonists of the plan. And in Givogi alone, the 9-year plan was launched in about 10 conferences that happened in different settings, in schools, families, and different segments of population participated. Figures of authority and teachers and others really participated in the conference. So we are beginning to see the plan, the 9-year plan, beginning to take shape in the life of everyone in the village. So as a matter of raising capacity, one foundational capacity that was really the focus of the plan was to raise the capacity to offer the educational content of the Training Institute, and with increased effectiveness, and also trying to offer this content in a manner that it responds to the aspirations of the people and, of course, the community as a whole. And to build this capacity, the nucleus of friends, of course supported by the other institutions and agencies, drew on the strategy of having seminars for teachers, animators, and tutors to enhance the capacity, their understanding. And we remember in the 29th December message, enhancing the understanding of the content really contributes a lot to the effectiveness of how the content is also delivered. Another approach was the study of the branch courses, of course connected to the seminars that also emerged in this village. So in Givogi, the group of villages, families have organized themselves into 28 groups. And in order to connect everyone to the educational process, 2 to 3 groups are connected to one of the 12 centers of learning in the village. Each center is realizing its potential to offer effectively the entirety of the educational content weekly with the support of teachers, animators, and tutors. And in some centers, they offer the PSA program and tutorial classes to children and junior youth who are participating in the educational program. The strategy of centers for learning is really significant to the progress of Givogi, and especially in thinking on how the educational content can be offered to a growing number of people in a systematic way, and providing support to the teachers, teams of teachers and tutors or human resources who are learning and drawing on the mutual support and assistance among one another. The Institute developed the capacity to socialize the concepts in the Institute to many in the village. So we began to see that as people advance through the sequence of courses, and particularly through home visits, the Institute content is beginning to reach every home, and in the home, almost every member of the household. And we learned to deliberately draw on Ruhi Book 2 and also Ruhi Book 12, which actually provided the context within which we can learn to teach and to see the Institute reshaping families, but also the society. Educational activities of the plan, the Training Institute, school system, and ISGP, for example, have become part of the culture of the upbringing and raising of younger generation in Givogi village, which is raising human resources or individuals who become to see themselves as protagonists and ready to also tackle complex realities that are emerging in the community. As this unfolds, the general view of nurturing younger generation has come to be realized in need of transformation. Drawing on the Institute, conversations about education as an extension of the support of children and junior youth in the Institute program have opened opportunities for partnership with different structures of society, schools, organizations, community leaders, and the government. The Training Institute has come to be viewed as an instrument belonging to the community with the potential to reshape how education is generally being viewed and structured. This is because the Training Institute draws on the creative word, which is the mover of souls. The local spiritual assembly in Givogi is organizing itself also to see its role to contribute to this development, and particularly in education. The assembly has learned to establish teams of individuals supporting the activities. It has come to be regarded as a beacon in the village where even the local administrators, including the assistant chief, turn to it for collaboration in addressing the matters that are affecting the village, but also thinking about the growth of the community. Owned by the community, including the local authority, the election of the local spiritual assembly is a matter that is the concern of everyone, including the churches, the administrators, and they come to witness, particularly during the time when the election of the local assembly is being conducted. So, friends, I don't know how much time I still have, but I wanted to share just one or two stories, very short ones. Okay, one about education and how, in addition to existing structures, we are beginning to see that the community is concerned about education in all its forms. So we know that in many African communities, and particularly in East Africa and in Kenya, the path of raising an individual and advancing through the educational process has many obstacles. And when you think about education, the costs that are associated with the education And also when you think about, the supporting and encouraging young people to advance with education, it is something that the families need support, as well as also the individual children and junior youth, as well as also the community. So there is need actually to see how this is happening. So one reality that has come to begin to emerge in the community is that as the ideas and concepts in the Training Institute are shared by many people in the community, we are beginning to see how the community is beginning even to organize itself to support education. One point that we started to see was essentially in assisting the children and junior youth to go through the available content of the Training Institute. And we see, for example, in Givogi, about 150 youth have graduated from the program. And then we began to learn systematically on how they can continue to advance with the educational content. Maybe just to see how I'll summarize, maybe in half a minute, I don't know. So what we began to see is that as they continued to advance, the community began to be part of this learning process. And in the community, they started to organize themselves. We started to organize ourselves, not just the Baha'i community, but the entire society, thinking about what are the barriers that are preventing young people to advance maybe to tertiary education. And in Givogi, for example, a group that was initiated, not just by Baha'is, but Baha'is with their friends, is actually Banja Education Empowerment. So this group actually supports young people, encourages the members of the families to think about how they are supporting the young people to advance with education. And one thing that they will do, also they help to see that other than being an individual responsibility of each family, it can be a shared responsibility, and the community can come together and raise means to be able to support young people. Maybe just to be there so that we have other.
Thank you, Victor. I know the time you were all given is very small because there is a lot that is unfolding in these centers of intense activity. But you've just gotten a glimpse. But maybe for now we can open for questions if friends have questions. Yeah. Address to them, yes. So we have Johnston. And we have very limited time. I wanted to see. So we have Johnston and Juma. Maybe we can start with those. Yeah.
Yes, allow up friends.
Johnson, if you could stand up.
Yeah, I just had, I was interested to maybe to hear more from our dear friend from Tanzania, especially how devotional meetings are being accompanied. Sorry? Okay. Sorry, friends. I was actually interested to hear more about how our dear friend is from Tanzania, how they actually strengthen devotional character of the community, specifically, just to know how they have been actually accompanying those who are initiating these activities, and just to learn around maybe the mode of accompaniment in short, because he mentioned that not only at the level of the neighborhood, but at the level of the pocket, and I think we have collaborative arrangements to ensure that all the devotional meetings are well accompanied.
Okay, so this is one element that the communities continue to learn. So one, of course, was the driving force towards increasing the number of groups of families, because we realized even the community, it was getting harder and harder to coordinate these devotional meetings. So
Sama, if you could bring the microphone closer to you.
So, so it was actually getting harder and harder for the community to accompany all the devotional meetings as their number was increasing. One of the move was really to then increase the number of groups of families, and trying to figure out even the way they were structuring the groups and going to visit the friends so that they can group the activities within those groups of families, so that it becomes easy for the friends within the groups of families to accompany and to own those activities. So that has been one of the things that has really helped. But for the ones that were not part of the groups of families, what happened then, they had to create like groups of adjoining activities in a way that they structured like 4 or 5 devotional meetings together, so that then they can meet the hosts of those devotional meetings. Because it was harder to, if you visit one devotional meeting at a time, you won't be able to visit all of them. So then they grouped them into groups so that then you can talk to the hosts and invite them. And in a way that has also led to increase the number of groups of families, but there are some that they function like that. But then the next phase was also to list the name of all the devotional meetings and their hosts and putting them in a continuum. Because when you are going over and over, then you realize, okay, how many of these devotional meetings are actually happening? Then you realize, oh, this one, or until you go, when you call them, then this happens. So then they had to put that in a continuum. We have two full-time growth facilitators in the pocket who are following actually in the Zasabi neighborhood. There are 4 pockets, but they work together. So then they started going and then figuring out, okay, how are we then accompanying and building capacity of these? So they put in milestone 1, 2, and 3 for easy, and then trying to see, okay, how many of the milestone ones can we help? Because the milestone ones are the ones, if you don't go, they won't happen, which means then they demand more accompaniment. So then figuring out, okay, what nature of the conversation you would have, what you need what capacity do they need to build for them to be able to hold the devotional meetings on their own. So then that, the more you get more devotional meetings in milestone 2, at least you know they will function. They will meet even if you don't go. So that has been the structure. And of course the team, the nucleus group at the community is really helping the growth, the coordinators, the institute coordinator, they are working as a team. So you find that even when accompanying the devotional meetings, it's not just left for the growth facilitators, it's for the entire team, the way they divide the different neighborhoods and the little streets to be able to accompany the devotional meetings. Thank you.
Yes, Alawapa. Okay, I'm very happy to have heard a lot from the panel that has brought the information to really understand what is happening at the level of the villages. Yeah, my concern and where I could like to learn more is to that friend of mine from Tanzania. Yeah, you remember talking much about the junior youth program, and we understand that the junior youth, when they have graduated the program, so they join the courses in the main sequence. So I really like to learn what is the plan in place so that when they are now youth, the connection, how are you connecting them wherever they are so that they can be connected to the growth process of the faith.
I'll try. Again, that's another area we are really trying to learn, because one of the challenges you see in an urban setting like that, when the junior youth, when they finish primary school, most of them, they relocate. They go for further education for those who can. Otherwise, then they start searching for jobs. So you can't really retain most of them. It's harder to track, but it's something that the learning site is learning how to follow their progress from junior youth to the main sequence and to accompany them in that process. So far, we've been able to assist 65 junior youth who have completed, graduated from the junior youth program towards the main sequence. And we are learning how to follow their progress in that way. And we have some that have already finished the main sequence. They are now tutors or serving as animators who are very active within the community. But it's an ongoing process of learning how to do that because of that dynamics of moving.
Maybe maybe it's a related one. Also, I don't know if Victor could add. It might be related to this, but a few months ago, the friends in Givogi were sharing also about some of these elements of culture that you're also seeing beginning to change as the teachings of the faith become more prevalent. So I wonder the point about the initiation, if there's the rites of passage. Yeah.
Yeah, I can see friends are smiling. They know the famous Idumi. Can you say Idumi? Anyway, so it's a rite of passage from childhood to maturity for boys. Basically, it's actually circumcision. And in Givogi, but also in the entirety of the cluster, we see that in most cases, this process would be sometimes be create harmful environment to young people who are transitioning to maturity. Especially, it's actually the junior youth are the ones who will go for initiation. And so something that the cluster friends, and particularly in Givogi and other villages, they started to learn is in what ways could the teachings begin to transform the way this initiation happened. Because it may be the same in your place, but as you know, so the initiates, they go and stay away from the family for a full month. And when they go and stay away from the family, I don't want to tell you where, so they sometimes they get there are talks that the community would give, the older men will also give to these young people, but also there are other environments that begin to create within there. So what we have seen is that as Baha'is have begun to be more conscious, and being conscious, they also see how to begin conversations with clan elders, with the old people, the wazee, to begin to talk about ways in which they can also draw on the what the Baha'is have to really raise the capacity of the young people. So at first, it was okay, we avoid and it is harmful. But I think as we continued, we begin to see how this can begin to be transformed, and the good part to really become more, and also the other, maybe the harmful part can also be transformed to actually see better way of handling this. So one of these process has been talking to the young people, and in some of the places where these junior youth go, there has been efforts even to offer the educational content to these young people. They are in some of the communities, and we have seen that because of the capacity that is being raised in animators who are boys, because normally in the initiation, there is an elder one, maybe 20, 21, up to 30, who is taking care of the 15, 16, 17-year-old. So in most cases, the community would propose the animators to be there, the ones to take care, and they have started finding it natural to introduce even the junior youth program and other programs in this initiation.
Thank you. Maybe we have room for just one question, and maybe we can give it to Peter. And if you could directly ask the question rather than going around first.
Thank you very much, Alaba. So we're lucky to have two realities, urban and rural. I'm also very curious how long the process, sorry, because Victor was sharing about consciousness. So curious how long the process has taken in Givogi and is it in Zasa? Yes, and we know the role of discourses in raising collective consciousness. So what are some of the discourses that have been sustained for a long time?
Yeah, so when you think about the process in Givogi, of course, Givogi is one of the villages in Tiriki West that have had Baha'is for quite a long period of time. In some of the places, like we have a fourth or fifth generation Baha'is. So like the great grandfather and the grandfather and the father, and now we have like the fifth, and even in some families, you're beginning to see even sixth generation Baha'is. So early in 60s, I think the faith was introduced, and even the local assembly started in 1960s. But I think within the last 5 years is the period where 5 or 10 years is the period when we have begun to see, rapid acceleration of the process, because for many years we could do the activities, but more among the Baha'is. And then it started to be like the Baha'is are doing it for the community. But now we are beginning to see how the activities is not Baha'is for the community, but the Baha'is together with the communities are trying to think of ways that reshaping the social reality. They themselves are also part of it. So, and particularly this has really come in the past, like about 5 to 10 years. But then the discourses that are unfolding in the community, there are many discourses that are really unfolding in different settings. In Givogi, for example, Baha'is have found themselves either part of certain figures of authority or closely connected to the figures of authority, maybe members of the school board, maybe close to the assistant chief, or even associating, maybe some of them are teachers. And in this context, we begin to see different discourses unfolding, contributing to different processes, or even supporting the health system in the community. And one thing that we just started to learn also is how deliberately and in a very structured way we can begin to identify the spaces and then go and have a discourse or a conversation with these spaces. So an example is like, for example, teachers. So teachers are thinking about the intellectual and spiritual development of children and junior youth, as well as the training institute, the organization Mwelekeo, and then deliberately we started to see how about meeting the school administrators and beginning to see that. And we see it has really expanded beyond just the teachers in the school and the administrators of schools, like the school heads around this Givogi, because Givogi is part of Banja zone, and the head teachers are beginning to be part of this conversation and seeing how they can draw from the knowledge in the training institute the Baha'is are generating, but also complementing with what the schools are also learning. Thank you.
Yes. So in Zasa, the process started in different phases. So there are some attempts to open the neighborhood before 2017. That was before the bicentenary celebration. And there were a group of youth that was sent to teach for they stayed there for like 2 months, and they invited friends to the bicentenary celebrations. But after that, we were not able to sustain the activities. So another phase was launched in 2019 with the support of the local spiritual assembly. 2 Homefront pioneers were sent to that neighborhood. They stayed there, so at least some activities happened. And another phase was launched in 2021. In 2021, we still had about 20 core activities within the neighborhood. But again, that's when we went through the 3rd May 2018 letter. And this time we were like, we are told not to follow this as a formula, but we were like, let's try and follow word to word as much as we can. And we saw a lot of changes from there onwards. And then the focus, of course, then was to really raise human resources. So the discourses were really, the materials that we used to shape most of the discourses were the youth conference material, the 2013, because it really helped when we were having conversations with the youth to raise the desire to contribute to that tomorrow forward purpose, where they also think of contributing to their community building. And that has really helped to get more and more youth into the process. But another set of material we are using a lot is the conference material, the global conference materials, especially with mothers in groups of families, because it really shapes the vision of Baha'u'llah. It talks about the institute process. It has really helped to raise more and more the desire to be part of the process.
Thank you. So, dear friends, we still have dear Victor, Kemba, and Sama with us, because we saw a lot of hands. Maybe you can find some time to reach out to them and continue with the conversation. But I feel maybe we need to move on. Yeah, but before we move on, I just wanted maybe to share a question for reflection in regard to what we have just concluded. How can the learning emerging from these neighborhoods and villages accelerate the multiplication of such communities across the region, our regions and countries? Because it is from here that we shall see how the society building power of the faith, how the society building power of faith is being realized in ever greater measures, which is the central aim of the current series of global plans. So maybe you have to see how you can think of this question in terms of moving forward. You know? So dear friends, we've been navigating through the different paragraphs of the message that are connected to the role of the community as a protagonist in propagation of the plan. But I feel at this time, we need to transition and pay attention to the role of the institutions. The recent message from the House of Justice draws our attention once again to a central and unifying theme of the plan, which is learning. In paragraph 9 and 10 of the 31st December message, the focus shifts to insights emerging from the efforts of institutions. Yet also in here, the lens remains how institutions are operating in a learning mode alongside communities and individuals. The House of Justice explains that institutions themselves must operate in a learning mode, consciously cultivating an environment in which individuals, communities, and institutions at various levels are engaged in learning on an ongoing basis. Such an environment, the message continues to state, is characterized by reflection on experience, openness to insight from different settings, and the willingness to adjust approaches as understanding advances. We could see this learning posture, for example, when a local assembly reflects on a complete cycle of activities. The conversation goes beyond whether targets were met. It asks deeper questions. For example, what did we learn about accompaniment? What helped families feel more involved? What supported or hindered the participation of the junior youth? When the assembly then carries these insights forward and adjusts its approach in the next cycle, it becomes clear that the institution itself is learning, side by side with the community. To help us visualize the rich environment of learning that we are observing in our communities, the House of Justice introduces the analogy of ecosystem. The power of the image lies not in the terminology, but in what it allows us to perceive. We are invited to appreciate that a flourishing process of learning comes about through countless informal and informal interactions. We might ask, where do we see learning happening most naturally? In informal contexts or in everyday interactions? And are we paying attention to both? Learning, we are reminded by the House of Justice, does not take place only in training spaces or reflection spaces. It unfolds just as meaningfully in conversations between individuals like the tutors, animators, teachers, through visits to families, and among our friends consulting on how to advance a given area, also in study circles, in class gatherings, where insights of different neighborhoods are shared, and so on. Within this ecosystem then, learning is described as fundamentally bottom-up and largely horizontal. The message speaks of free-flowing, uninterrupted exchange of insights, experience, ideas among friends, neighborhoods and villages, and also clusters. We might recognize this for when a group of friends in one village discovers a new effective way to engage parents in the development of the spiritual education of children. That insight travels not through instruction, not through direction, but through relationships to nearby villages, shared in conversations, accompaniment, and cluster meetings. And all this happens horizontally, not vertically. When insights move from one level to another, especially from the grassroots to institutions, the House of Justice offers an important clarification. This flow is not for the benefit of the institutions themselves. Rather, institutions ensure that what is being learned reaches everywhere, so that all may benefit from a growing shared body of knowledge, helping each person engage in action and reflection to feel connected to the wider learning process. This is described by the House as tending the ecosystem of learning. For instance, a cluster engines may gather experiences from several neighborhoods about effective accompaniment of the Unit Spiritual Empowerment Program, systematize these insights, and then share with the animators, tutors across the cluster, ensuring that no one remains isolated from what is being learned. The message further emphasizes that the health of the ecosystem depends on the quality of interactions within it. Learning process must be marked by love, humility, and magnanimity. While everyone shares responsibility, for these qualities, institutions have a particular role in consciously creating environments where these qualities find expression. For example, we may see this when an assembly creates a space where young believers feel genuinely heard, when an auxiliary board member accompanies with encouragement rather than correction and instruction, or when the regional council consults in a way that it draws the quieter voices. Paragraph 10 then illustrates how the ecosystem of learning functions in practice. As increasing number of friends at the grassroots engage in learning across many lines of action, local spiritual assemblies increasingly respond to the need for coordination and planning in support of these efforts. This might look like helping to coordinate times and venues for multiple study circles, connecting animators with resources, or planning devotional gatherings and strengthening bonds among the participants. This responsibility is shared with cluster agencies, which together ensure that advice, resources, and encouragement are being directed where they are most needed, and that the process of learning continues to advance. Cluster agencies may, for example, prioritize accompaniment in a new area where the junior youth groups are just beginning, or connect experienced animators with emerging animators. The same pattern of learning and sharing knowledge extends across localities and clusters. Cluster agents see to it that lessons learned in one locality, or even a small portion of it, benefit the rest of the cluster. And this is also mirrored, the House of Justice says, by sharing knowledge and insights among the clusters. We might recognize this when one cluster develops a fruitful approach to engaging, for example, schools, and neighboring clusters adapt the approach through inter-cluster relationships and learning that's organized in spaces for the groups of adjoining clusters. At the regional level, institutions, and national level, institutions continue to grow in their capacity to follow the learning process as learning process progresses by cultivating conditions in which many are engaged in learning, and by ensuring that insights are systematized, documented, and disseminated. At the same time, they remain attentive to whether basic structures need adjustments, being alert when existing arrangements need to be evolved and when new arrangements may be required. For example, the National Assembly may recognize that rapid expansion calls for new training structures, or that regional coordination mechanisms may need to evolve. And through consultations, such adjustments are not signs of difficulty. Rather, they are expressions of learning in action. Now, friends, maybe with those few comments, as we open for your sharing, you are therefore requested to reflect not simply on what institutions do, but rather on how they learn alongside other protagonists of the plan, how they guide, encourage, allocate resources, and how they consciously nurture conditions in which learning can flourish across neighborhoods, villages, clusters, and regions, and at the national level as well. So maybe we may now open for your insights if there are no comments from. Any comments? So I can see a few hands are going up. And then your handwriting. We can start with the Dear Ramatola. If the microphone can be taken to him. And this is
so I may focus my sharings on one of the elements about learning, and I think my experience will go much to share some insights about how the cluster agencies themselves are assisted to be raised in this capacity for learning. And of course, we've done much to draw from one of the experiences shared by the Teaching Center in 3rd May letter, 2018. So there's a specific paragraph that talks about how or what we need to pay attention to in terms of raising such capacities. So I will share my experience in terms of 4 elements identified within that experience. So one will regard to the nature of orientation of these agencies. 2, I will share something about an experience on how to assist these agencies begin to think in terms of systems and processes that build capacity rather than just in numerical increase of activities. And 3, I will share something about how to organize their work in a way that they focus at once on accompanying all villages, but at the same time, raising some specific centers which can be proven. And lastly, the teaching center suggested that one area that can assist us to systematize the learning process, of course, is maintaining a written history of the learning process cycle after cycle. So of course, regarding to the first element, I will just give an example. So we are learning to see how the orientation of these agencies is geared towards identifying the capacities they need for them to be oriented towards learning. And of course, the content, the nature of environment, and the nature of these spaces are organized in a way that can assist these agencies to really nurture their capacity for learning. So closely related to this, I will focus much on how we began the learning process to assist some of the agencies to begin thinking in terms of systems and processes that build capacity. And of course, one important insight that has really assisted, especially Ndivisi and Kimilili and Makutano, has been to draw from the insights in Book 10. So the Book 10 has been incorporated into their pattern of action, reflection, and consultation. And I think this has been a very major factor. So for example, a few cycles ago, when the plan was still in its early stages, we realized that, for example, in Ndivisi, cluster agencies were focusing so much on expansion, and they were most of the results of expansion were not being consolidated sufficiently. So the capacity that was being built within these agencies was to learn to identify right questions to ask. So for example, one question that they ask themselves, how can they make sure that expansion and consolidation goes hand in hand? And what they realized was perhaps the institute process was not able to be a bit systematic to assist all those who are gotten during the expansion phases to be consolidated. And one major challenge, of course, was about the question of tutors who can offer a full range of institute courses. So the cluster agencies together, of course, with the auxiliary board members, then decided to take that as a very big object of learning for a number of cycles. And up to now, of course, we are glad to see that a system has been created where larger and larger numbers of people go through the institute process to respond to the needs of expansion. And of course, related to that was the fact of raising the capacity for teaching and enrollment. And of course, the basic factor has been how the ATC together with the agencies are learning to draw from the same institute materials to build such capacities. So in one cycle, the area teaching committee decided, for example, to identify all these friends who go for expansion each cycle, and they assisted them to review Book 6 during the expansion phase. And as they were doing so, I think it really assisted them to see how to approach teaching and so on. And then I will briefly talk about how the agencies are oriented or the mode of operation around all villages. So of course, this capacity assisted the area teaching committee to learn how to raise specific centers for learning, but at the same time, connect other villages to this learning process. So as a result, of course, they picked two most advanced villages, which is Namarambi and Wabuhonyi, and they adjoined other villages to these two villages to serve as learning areas. So one result has been, for example, when the area teaching committee thinks about expansion and consolidation, then it is seeking to assist one locality really manifest all these properties that can assist expansion and consolidation to be so pronounced. And they connect the other center to this learning process until the center is able to take up ownership of that process. And of course, naturally with this, we see that the local assemblies within those centers that are trying to be raised naturally and gradually take ownership of the processes of expansion and consolidation. And of course, over time, a system was established where a growing number of individuals go through the institute courses. One of the most beautiful results, of course, was the movement of youth. So then the area teaching committee had to learn about how to manage such complexities that are now arising. And of course, recently, then it thought to identify specific youth who can follow the learning process around identification and organizing these youths in gatherings and training them and so on. And I think that was a team of youths to specifically follow about the learning process about the youth. Lastly, I will try to share something about, of course, we are not forgetting that even the cluster, how it operates, it's naturally connecting other clusters to the same process, because the cycles are becoming very pronounced, and naturally, they are joining clusters. Of course, when we identify elements that are needed to be learned in especially another cluster, then it naturally connects to some of the elements that are happening within a cycle. And of course, this is also influencing how the regional agencies themselves orient. Lastly, is about the capacity to document. Of course, we had mentioned about the capacity of documentation and also how it assists to systematize this learning experience. So the cluster also decided to come up with a working document to organize all these learnings, which are being updated cycle after cycle. Thank you.
Thank you, dear Amatola. So we'll have Rukia from Central West Kenya, followed by Joseph from Eastern Uganda.
Hello, friends. Okay, I'll try to share about how the local spiritual assembly have increasingly been able to meet the need for coordination and planning, and also how this responsibility is being shared with the cluster agencies. So I'll start from the grassroots, and I'll share an experience from Tiriki West cluster, a Gamgeni community. So the plan starts, how the LSS starts planning. This plan starts when the new LSA is placed in, is elected. So the LSA comes up with plans, and the plans include, they plan for 1 year. And this plan includes the human resources that is going to be trained during the year, the number of activities going to be formed, like the children class and the junior youth, the number of social activities that is going to take place. So also the earmark activities, like how much maybe they are going to contribute during the year. So this, after doing so, and we've seen they've seen now that to deal with this complexity, the LSA now comes up with the teams. Like, as we know, LSAs are not implementers, but they act as a voice of moral authorities. So these teams are kept in place, and also the committees that helps to reinforce the work of the local spiritual assemblies. So these teams function, and some of the members of these local spiritual assemblies are attached to these teams. And whenever the information is gathered, the experience is generated from one area to the another, the LSA gets this information through these teams, and they conduct reflection. And after coming together, documenting the experiences and learning and experience generated from the teams, they come and share with the area teaching committees. And after sharing with the area committees these experiences, we see these ATCs planning for meetings, also planning the meetings for, like, trying to strengthen the capacity of the functioning also for ATCs, the local spiritual assemblies. So we see ATC conducting even the reflection spaces for the secretaries of these local spiritual assemblies. And this is where the administrative capacity is built by the ATCs. And after maybe these capacities build, maybe the sharing of insights from the LSS is being shared with the ATC. The ATC now takes responsibility to disseminate this learning. And after they have disseminated this learning, they go ahead, maybe working hand in hand with these local spiritual assemblies. We see some of the experiences documented from different clusters are shared with the wider communities. And also these local spiritual assemblies act as reservoirs, this advanced community. We see ATC also attaching the other weak LSA to these LSS. And this is how they learn from one another, and knowledge is also disseminated to other communities. And we have had experiences on how this knowledge is being disseminated through maybe local spiritual assemblies coming with case studies, sharing with the LSS, and we've seen also the audios that are being produced with these communities. I know we are aware of Staring at Dawn. It was originally generated from Gamgeni community, and we've seen how it has helped so many communities and regions. And this was because of the collaboration of the local spiritual assembly, the ATC, and the institution at large. Thank you.
Joseph, you can add names. I can see what's her name, that hand in blue.
Thank you. Alauba. In the eastern region, majorly this learning process unfolds at 3 major levels. At the level of the village, and at the level of groups of adjoining clusters, and at the level of sub-region, and then region. So at the level of the village, maybe drawing practical examples from Kalengo, we are seeing the local spiritual assembly also taking charge of following the friends that are being drawn to support other villages. With experiences generated so far during the trainings, we observed that a number of villages that were connected to Kalengo neighborhood, there were a number of youth who were also interested in the study of the materials offered by the institute. But there was a question of capacity and human resources to assist them. So then the friends that were trained from Kalengo reflected upon that need and realized that there is a need to assist these friends systematically. Of course, during some other trainings, they could come, maybe 1 or 2 from different villages could come, but the agencies at the cluster level also reflected to see that there is need to systematically assist the friends study. So experienced individuals that have experienced the learning from the village were identified to assist the friends study the books of the main sequence in some of these villages. And particularly in Kodike, when the friends were assisted to study Ruhi book 1, 2, and 3, we realized that majority of the youth and also some adults declared their faith to Baha'u'llah, and there was a need to assist them take charge of ownership and the process in their own community. So the friends, together with the area teaching committee, reflected the need to invite them to some of the spaces organized by the local spiritual assembly of Kalengo. And the friends continued coming for devotional meetings, holidays, in preparation to take charge of their own community, which they plan to elect during the Rizvan period. At the level of the groups of adjoining clusters, the cluster agencies are laboring to see that the friends from the other clusters that are attached to Ngora cluster are invited in some of the reflection spaces. But a lot happens in the reflection spaces. There's also need to understand the social reality of these clusters. And then the friends will assess what are the needs and how are they going to be assisted, and then which village can provide them with practical assistance. So when the friends are taken to the field, the friends have that practical aspect of learning what they really intend to take back to their communities. And also when they go back to their respective clusters, there is a follow-up from the friends from the Ngora cluster to ensure that whatever they have learned is implemented. This has been really evident, especially with the support also of the team for the social action, the collaborators following the social action in the village, the area teaching committee, and of course the other institutions. At regional level, the collaborative group plays a very important role in consolidating this information, insights, and experiences. And also the friends reflect together during that period. Read through the document, some of these written insights, and I see if it's really applicable in some of their neighborhoods. And of course, with the guide of the institutions, careful analysis is done to see that some of the elements that worked in maybe the villages of intense activity, the friends are assisted to implement in their respective clusters. And the teams at regional level and also the institutions will keep note of what is unfolding in these different villages when the friends go back. And they also share respective reports and experiences generated during the implementation of their plans. So when you look at the level of the village, at the level of the adjoining groups and entire region, there is really that vigorous process to see how insights are disseminated all over, but carefully analyzed to see how they could meet up with the different realities in different clusters. And it's a process that the region is striving to continue learning. Thank you.
Thank you, Joseph. So we have Musafiri from Western Tanzania, Jane from Northeast Kenya, Kevin from Central West. Musafiri. We can't see Musafiri. Maybe it's at the back. So maybe as Musafiri is organizing himself, we can first have Jane from Northeast Kenya. Hmm?
So, in Northeast region, our experience during the first phase of the 9-year plan reflects the growing relationship between grassroots learning and evolving capacity of institutions as described in paragraph 9 and 10 of the 31st December 2025 message. As more friends have engaged across multiple lines of actions, the need for coordination, coherence, and timely support has become increasingly evident. At the cluster level, local spiritual assemblies, now numbering 28 across the region, are learning to respond to growth alongside the cluster agencies. These assemblies are in a continuum in terms of capacity, and the region has a systematic learning process on development of assemblies. Some are still strengthening basic administrative functions, while others are increasingly focused on coordinating complex patterns of activities. As more groups of friends become engaged in teaching, institute activities and social action, local assemblies have begun shifting from overseeing isolated activities to supporting a learning process. This responsibility has been shared with cluster agencies, particularly institute coordinators and area teaching committees, ensuring that advice, encouragement, and resources reach the friends who need them the most. For example, in Kiambaa cluster, with 2 local assemblies, each of the assemblies is closely following the learning process about formalization of the educational programs in their communities and have allocated resources in their respective annual budgets towards the programs. The education programs are being sustained in 2 schools in these 2 localities that I've mentioned, and children arts festivals and junior youth camps have become a regular feature. The support and encouragement offered by the 2 assemblies has assisted with significant progress on ensuring ensuring that more educational content is offered at the localities. Another example that we would want to share is from a recent third milestone cluster called Abudhugushi West. The regional agencies had, for some years, made efforts to try to move Abudhugushi West to the next milestone, but we had experienced some setbacks and some problems. By coincidence or by instance, the 2 women from one community in Abudhugushi West, that is Kariene community, are members of a women group movement that is in that locality. So this women movement has been in existence for around 20 years. When they came to mark their 20th anniversary, they noted that these 2 women that were from the Baha'i community have been with them for some time, but these women had not gotten an opportunity to understand or have more information about the Baha'i faith. So the women leadership of that chama decided that they would do their women the 20th anniversary at the Baha'i Center. When this came about, the 2 women that were in this chama contacted their local spiritual assembly, because what used to happen when they used to go to the other meetings and the other anniversaries, they kind of ran a program where these women get to an opportunity to learn something new. So these 2 women approached the local spiritual assembly of the Baha'is of Kariene to assist them to organize or to think about how best they would utilize the chance to allow these women to learn something about the Baha'i faith. The local spiritual assembly made plans and contacted the regional Baha'i council to consult on one of the best topics that could be discussed, and also avail some resources to the local spiritual assembly of the Baha'is of Kariene to be able to run this program. This was done, and interestingly enough, what was chosen to be discussed that day was about the monetary aspect and the use of money. The reason why this was chosen is when these women come to, for example, in their churches, they run a fundraiser, and the money that is gotten is left to the church they have gone to.
So, yeah, Jane, maybe we can consider wrapping up.
All right. Okay, so what has happened from that experience in Kariene, it has, the local spiritual assembly has been able to support these initiatives, and the story has proceeded on to the clan around Kariene and the next villages that have that are neighboring Kariene, and they have learned quite a lot, and we have seen quite a move that has been spurred from this grassroots initiative that has been started, and the same has spread across several villages neighboring Kariene. Thank you.
Thank you. So we'll have Musafiri, followed by Kevin.
Yeah, nitasema kwa Kiswahili, Bwana Bendera atatafsiri.
Musafiri, we can't see you. If you can step forward a little, maybe at the doorway.
Kwa nitaeleza kidogo kuhusiana na kile kinachoendelea kwenye cluster ya Lalambe kuhusiana na mifumo hiyo iliyowekwa kuhusiana na mada tunayozungumzia. Cluster Lalambe ni cluster ambayo inafanya kazi na shughuli zimekumbatia idadi kubwa ya watu, na hiyo imeathiri kwenye kuimarisha mifumo ya uratibu na kuona kiwango cha msaada ambacho kinaweza kuhitajika kwa ajili ya kuweza kuimarisha mchakato wa shughuli ambao umeendelea kukunjuka ndani ya cluster nzima.
So he's going to share on Lalambe cluster, and Lalambe cluster is the cluster which has embraced large numbers. So due to this, it has affected different arrangements and different activities, and on how these activities are being supported.
Kwa kulingana na kukumbatiaji wa idadi kubwa watu ndani ya cluster, kwa shughuli mbalimbali zimeanza kuendeshwa kwenye makundi ya kifamilia ili kuweka mfumo mzuri wa kuratibu shughuli hizo. Walimu wameweka kwenye timu za walimu, na kila timu ina mratibu mwenzi ambaye anatoa msaada kwa karibu kwa idadi ya nguvu kazi ambao wanaendesha shughuli ndani ya eneo hilo. Na
so due to these clusters, as I said, it has embraced large numbers, and different arrangements have emerged, like groups of families, and these have affected how the activities are conducted. Also, collaborative arrangements have also emerged in different groups of families.
Kwa kulingana na utata huo, Baraza la Kiroho la Mahali kwa kushirikiana na mawakala wa cluster na washauri wasaidizi na wasaidizi wao walihamasisha au walisaidia kwenye uibukaji wa kundi la marafiki linaloshirikiana ndani ya kijiji ambalo lingeweza kulisaidia baraza na mawakala wa cluster kufuatilia mchakato wa maendeleo unaoendelea kukunjuka ndani ya kijiji cha Tite ili kutoa msaada unaostahili kwa maendeleo ya huo mchakato mzima.
Due to complexity which has emerged in this cluster, particularly at the Tite village, so there is another arrangement which has emerged, that is a collaborative arrangement at the level of village. So due to this, there are some arrangements which have been set so as to assist this complexity which has emerged in this village, Tite village.
Mpangilio huo umewezesha Baraza la Kiroho la Mahali na mawakala wa cluster kuona ni msaada gani ambao unahitajika na ni kiwango gani kama Baraza la Mahali linaweza kutoa kwa ajili ya kurahisisha huo mchakato ambao unaendelea ndani ya kijiji.
Due to this arrangement, the local spiritual assembly has arranged some local spiritual assembly has assisted the friends to see how this complexity can be managed, so as to give the support of what has been going on in this village.
Kuona ule wajibu ambao baraza linabeba, halmashauri ya Kibai ya kanda na washauri wasaidizi walikuwa na wajibu wa kuhakikisha kwamba wanajenga uwezo wa Baraza la Kiroho la Tite, kuhakikisha kwamba wanaweza kukuza uwezo wa kutoa msaada zaidi unaostahili kwa ajili ya maendeleo ya kijiji. Kwa hiyo waliweka mabaraza ya aina hiyo kama ya Tite, Kiziba, Kirando kwenye mtandao ili kuweza kujenga uwezo wao pamoja wa kuweza kutoa usaidizi unaoweza kuhitajika kwa maendeleo ya vijiji.
Because of the complexity which are emerging in various villages, so in a collaboration of Regional Bike Council, in a collaboration with auxiliary board members, have come up with the arrangement where they have put the local spiritual assembly in a local spiritual assemblies in a network, So there's these local spiritual assemblies of like Kiziba, Tite, Kirando, which are most advanced local spiritual assemblies. So they have put in a network so as they can be assisted together.
Kwa hiyo ni njia mojawapo ambayo imekuwa ikisaidia kusambaza ujifunzaji wa kile kinachoendelea Tite kwenye maeneo mengine ya vijiji au kile kinachoendelea kwenye kona fulani ya kijiji kinachofanya na baraza fulani kwenda kwenye baraza lingine kwa ajili ya kuendeleza huo msaada ambao unahitaji kutolewa kwenye maeneo ya shughuli shadidi. Lakini vile vile kwenye ngazi ya kanda ndogo halmashauri kwa kushirikiana na washauri wasaidizi walisaidia uwepo wa timu ya kundi la marafiki ambao wanaangazia kwa karibu maendeleo ya kanda ndogo ili kuhakikisha kwamba kila cluster inaangaziwa kwa karibu na inapokea msaada unaohitajika na kwa wakati ili kuhakikisha kwamba kuna maendeleo ambayo hayakomi kwa ajili ya maendeleo ya hizo cluster na vijiji ambavyo vimeendelea zaidi.
So at the level of sub-region, auxiliary board members in collaboration with regional by council have assisted the development of these villages or local spiritual assemblies so as to ensure that the flow of assistance is not, there is a steady flow of assistance to these local spiritual assemblies so as to make sure that the level of development is advancing.
Thank you, dear Msafiri. So we'll have Kevin from Central West and Lynette. And between you, you have 7 minutes. So Kevin, maybe if you can be generous to Lynette as well.
Alapa. So I will share from Central West on 2 areas. One of them is where Msafiri was sharing about how the Regional Baha'i Council is assisting the local assemblies to in a trajectory movement. So in Central West, we have 86 local assemblies. But in these 86 local assemblies, they are all at different levels of advancement. So there are 5 local assemblies that are farthest advanced in terms of the processes in their communities. So the Regional Baha'i Council, in consultation with the other agencies and institutions, we usually have a meeting with these 5 local assemblies just to have a reflection space where they can all reflect together, share the experiences that are taking place in their jurisdiction. But at the heart of the consultation is the unfoldment of the community building processes and the transformation that is taking place in the villages. So in this space, really, it has become really a space where all local assemblies, they see themselves as if they are contributing to this learning process as all together, and it's really an exchange of experiences from all the communities. But in addition to the local assembly spaces, we also have another space that brings the nucleus from these villages just to continue the reflection that is taking place in these places. And really, it has really become a space for the dissemination of learnings and knowledge from each community. But because these local assemblies, they come from different sub-regions, actually the region is divided into 5 sub-regions. And in these five sub-regions, there are kind of 3 sub-regions that have advanced, but other 2 really are being assisted to advance alongside others. So we have Kakamega and Busia sub-regions, which are very close. So Busia is really assisting Kakamega to advance, and Vihiga is also assisting Nandi to advance. So we have other centers of intense activity in the clusters within this sub-region that are now connected to these 5 local assemblies just to advance together, so that as we go to, as they come together to reflect, they are also disseminating these learnings to other communities that are not connected to these 5 most advanced sub-regions. Thank you.
Thank you, Victor, for being on time. Dear Lynette.
Okay. Hello, my friends. Yes. I'll share a brief reflection on how the local spiritual assemblies of SEME is really working, or how the local spiritual assembly of SEME is fostering a process of learning. So maybe to begin with a bit description of this local assembly. SEME Local Spiritual Assembly is an assembly within Kisumu sub-region in southwest Kenya. The assembly was elected for the first time in April 2024. This institution came into being through the coming together of 3 communities. And from its inception, it has carried the name of the cluster itself through a symbol of unity and shared purpose. The newly formed assembly has already demonstrated how, even at the earliest stage, the local assembly can rise. Yes. Through the assembly has already demonstrated how, even at the earliest stage, the local assembly can rise to meet the requirement of the growth process with vigor and devotion. As the cluster began to realize, as the cluster began to realize more of the people who are entering into the institute courses, you will bear with me because I'm reading from my phone. Okay. So as the cluster begin to realize that more and more people from are entering into the institute process, and there was need for coordination structure at the level of the cluster, the assembly has assumed a vital role in ensuring that the work of the faith advances systematically. Its 9 members, conscious of responsibility entrusted to them, divided among themselves a task of guiding the various lines of action. In this way, like children's classes, junior youth groups, study cycles, and devotional gatherings, each received the attention and accompaniment required in their development. This division of responsibility has not ensured efficiency, but also fostered a spirit of collective learning, as each member bring insight from their area of service back into the assembly consultative spaces. The assembly has worked in close collaboration with the area teaching committee. When the committee meets, its minutes and shared with the assembly, enabling to mobilize resources, including funds, and also assisting with implementation. The assembly follows closely the plans initiated by the committee, making sure that all activities are carried out with diligence and unity of purpose. This relationship has carried a rhythm of consultation and action that strengthen the coherence of the cluster. Looking ahead, the assembly is striving to ensure that the establishment of the new local spiritual assembly in other communities, the milestone that will stand among its greatest achievement and further consolidation of foundation of growth in the cluster. Each month, the assembly shares its minutes with the regional by-council. This practice ensures transparency and alignment between the local and the regional level, allowing the council to remain abreast of development in the cluster. The local spiritual assembly shoulders most of the activity by supporting them with funds, thereby easing the work of the council. This self-sufficient reflection reflects the growing capacity of the community to sustain its own initiative. And this is a sign of maturity and resolve that is taking root among the believers. Beyond these administrative functions, the assembly has created space that nurture learning and fostering unity. Meeting with the religious leaders have open channel of dialogue and understanding, allowing the light of the faith to be shared in the spirit of respect and fellowship. Women gathering, community conference, and youth engagement are provided opportunity for participation on empowering, strengthening the role of women in the life of the community. Cluster reflection gatherings have enabled the friends to access progress, share insights, and renew the collective resolve in each of these spaces. Assembly has sought not only administer, but to inspire, to create conditions in which learning can flourish. The local assembly is learning.
May consider to wind up.
Sorry?
I know you're sharing a lot of insight, but because of time, you can consider winding up.
Thank you. The local assembly is learning to engage in the social transformation, like the banana project that were told yesterday by Haron. In Seme, the local speech assembly is also learning to on how the community can study the institute material in their native language, that is in Luo. Thank you.
Thank you. So dear friends, we have come to the end of this plenary session, and I know you'll carry these conversations to your breakout sessions, of course, to build on the conversations that are already unfolding in your breakout groups.